Magic is something like putting more preparation into a moment that anybody else would reasonably expect. And if you want to really simplify that, magic's not about the tricks. It's about the way you can make somebody else feel. And so whether you're able to create a feeling of wonder and amazement and importance and surprise inside of somebody with a magic trick, or just with like sincere care and attention and thought and attention to detail, it comes back to the same thing as how can you make a person feel in a moment.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Keynote Curators podcast. I'm Seth Deckman, your Keynote Curator. And today our guest is Christoph Fox. Christoph, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, I had to just double check there that you were actually talking about me. I didn't know if I was in the right place.
It's true. We didn't fake you out. We're not punking you. Or for those older like me, we didn't candid camera you. You know, you did something very special for us. You were the guest speaker at our company meeting last quarter, and it was just really, really cool. So it's great to have you back. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Well, I've had a great time getting to know you and working with you, so the feeling's mutual.
Well, thank you so much. And to our audience, I just want to chime in and just say, sit tight for this one. It's going to be a really, really interesting one. Very, very cool. No pre-planned in the sense of like already baked, but we're going to have some interactive activity, which leads me to the first question here. You're not just a mentalist. Who are you?
It's Christoph Fox, so I'm glad we double-checked that because I do think I'm in the right place now. You know, my career's evolved over time to where anybody who calls themselves a mentalist now, if you really like track how they got there, they tend to get there through magic. And so that was my story as well. Like early on, I fell in love with magic. I know my parents saw me fall in love with magic because they started buying me little props and little magic tricks that I could start to learn and piece together, even just as a kid, you know, simple magic tricks. I was hooked, and I started to take magic a little bit more seriously when I was a teenager, probably around 16. I remember just stumbling across some random videos on YouTube that would teach you how to do a little bit more advanced magic tricks, maybe some sleight of hand, making an object disappear from your hand, if you can believe it. And I sat there and I thought, well, I can learn this. So I followed along and I tried it a few times and I did the reps. And eventually I thought, okay, I've got it. I went upstairs. I showed my mom, and her reaction in that moment sort of just set me on this path of
So
wanting
you went
to
upstairs
continue.
in your house to the bedroom?
Well, I think we were in the den, and I was just like, "Hey, mom, get the camera. You know, mom, I got to show you something." And I showed her this magic trick, and she reacted in a way. I mean, you've seen people react to magic.
Yeah, it was
Sometimes
unexpected.
right, those reactions can be pretty extreme. And she was just so delighted by this magic trick that it was, I guess, in classical psychology terms, it was very positive reinforcement for me. I wanted to continue learning and practicing and performing magic. And then to your point, I became more and more of a mentalist over time, which is sort of magic of the mind. It deals more with how people think rather than props. And over the last few years, that's been sort of the framework of my career, is bringing mentalism to different stages around the world. But even more to your point, now what really brings me a lot of joy is weaving a message of positivity into that program. And at first it was, very simple. It was just sort of recognizing the audience that's in front of me, and in between moments of amazement, sort of showing to them that I care about the work that they're doing. And one thing I found is I think people are really starved for just a simple word of encouragement. It doesn't take much, but it means a lot. And so when I would come to present for an audience, as long as I had done my research and I really understood the work that they were doing, I could sincerely recognize them and compliment them and encourage them for all the great work that they're doing. And then it evolved from there to where my clients started to share what messages they're looking for and what's important to them. And we started to weave those custom ideas into this mentalism show. And now it's this crazy blend of like interactive mentalism and moments of humor and audience interaction and encouragement and positivity with a custom message. And
Yeah.
I'm having a great time, man. It's
Yeah,
been very
and it
rewarding.
shows. I mean, at our quarterly meeting, you enthralled us and delighted us and surprised
Thank you.
us even more so probably than your mother, because you're just so much better and more experienced. But there's one thing, Christophe, s'il te plaît, je
Oui,
voudrais parler
monsieur.
le français avec toi. It's the thing that you said is that here you are now, you did the reps and you're blending magic, some of the mental work, the mentalist that we call it in today's vernacular. But it
Mhm.
wasn't always easy for you. You had paralyzing stage fright, but you talk about people needing encouragement and a little kind of
Yeah.
fill them with positivity, but you needed that for yourself. How
Mhm.
did you go from this stage fright to performing for Fortune 100 companies and even international audiences? What was it that for you flipped the switch?
I was very afraid every time I got on stage,
What were you
and
afraid would happen?
afraid of how I'd be perceived, judgment from the audience, things going wrong. There's a sort of frame that you live in when you present yourself as a magician or a mentalist, which is that you can do anything. I mean, that's like the illusion that we're trying to create. Really big picture. If you look at a mentalist and a good one, you sort of want to believe that that person could do anything. When in reality, if you're building that illusion with sleight of hand or magic techniques or psychology or other sort of tools and ideas, you're living with a sort of facade, and at any point that could crack in a way that like the audience can see through you, and you feel very like judged. And so, on the one hand, while you're creating this persona and this like illusion for the audience and this sort of fantasy of like being able to do anything, you're living in like a way that you sort of know that like this could crack at any moment. And I don't pretend about that. I don't pretend to have any kind of powers or
Right.
supernatural abilities. As far as I'm concerned, this is all for entertainment, and I'm doing my best to create the illusion of something fun for the audience. But when that cracks, it's a very uncomfortable feeling for the performer. And so yeah, that was it. Just being on stage, knowing that at any moment anything could go wrong.
Right. Well, you've alluded to it, but I'll put some words to it and tell me if this speaks to you.
Mhm.
Magic can be a metaphor for personal or organizational transformation. Can you tie that, but walk that bridge for us?
I have a definition of magic that I really like, and I'm not the first person to say this, but magic is something like putting more preparation into a moment that anybody else would reasonably expect. And if you want to really simplify that, it's magic's not about the tricks. It's about the way you can make somebody else feel. And so whether you're able to create a feeling of wonder and amazement and importance and surprise inside of somebody with a magic trick, or just with like sincere care and attention and thought and attention to detail, it comes back to the same thing as how can you make a person feel in a moment.
Yeah.
And so I often share, one of the people in my life who taught me the most about magic, when you look at it that way, are not the magicians I learned from. It was my grandma, who just had this way of like, she lives in France and I grew up in America. And so I got to see her once a year. But every time my family and I, when would go to see her, she had this way of just making you feel so important and so special. And she would prepare the whole experience, right? They'd show up to pick us up at the airport dressed like they were going to church. My grandpa in a suit, my grandma in a dress. They'd take us home and we would be treated to three-course meals a day, like three-course meals a day, right? Like beautiful preparation. They had these trips to the mountains, trips to the beach planned for us. My grandma even signed me up to circus camp. And so even though I only got to see this important person in my life once a year, the way that she showed up in those moments just felt like pure magic. And so whether or not you're a magician or you do tricks, I don't think that's the point. I think the point is, what tools do you have at your disposal to create magic for someone else? Because magic's not about the tricks. It's about the way you can make somebody else feel.
Yeah, and I think much of our audience who's chiming in, they your keynotes or experiences just like you had with your grandmother, and this
Yeah.
is not the first time you've mentioned your
Mhm.
grandmother with such endearment, such affection, and I know you're not just a Francophile. France is part of your heritage, and I like to say I speak French. Je
You
parle
do.
français avec toi. Je peux
Right.
parler un petit peu. Je voudrais parler un plus, mais j'ai pas rien pour pratiquer le français.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I understand that perfectly. So if ever you're wondering, or if you want to claim in the future, I pretend to speak French. I'm gonna like call that
You're
out
going to
right
knock
now.
me off of
You
that.
speak French. Yeah.
But, that was a little bit of an interlude. That was a wow moment for you, especially looking back. I know you're moving your family and you're creating a new chapter in your life, which is exciting. And you
Yeah.
may not be dressed to the nines for church or three-course meals, but those wow moments ingrain something in you. And, for our audience who loves experiences, whether you're a small business owner, a meeting professional, an event marketer, conference planner, um, and anybody who is part of our subscriber tribe and viewer and listener tribe, we look for these wow moments in what we're creating. But meeting planners, meeting professionals look for wow moments at their events. And you're
Definitely.
intimately involved in creating and developing your keynote for when you go present. How do you help them create a wow moment? How do you help them fix something that's not wow and make it wow?
Well, I can only speak for myself here. When I'm stepping in to present for a company, it comes down to the questions that I ask the organizers going into that experience. I try to have a really good sense of what's important to this audience, what's top of mind for everyone in this audience right now, what's something that would be uncomfortable for the audience, like what's something that absolutely should be avoided. And I think it's just taking that time and preparation to know that when you show up, you're going to be fully equipped to show up in the best way possible. You and I both know a whole lot of keynote speakers, and I think everyone has a different process, but I don't think everyone treats it that way. I think some people sort of step into a role and they just kind of show up the way they always show up, and it's a little bit just out of the box. But if you're really trying to go above and beyond and create a moment that feels tailored and special and unique and live, I think it comes down to simply that. At least for me, it's just what questions can I ask to learn more about this audience and make sure that when I'm presenting, it really speaks to them in a way that wouldn't make sense for other audiences.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
It does. And then that's where then you map on your unique presentation
Yeah.
talent. I think that this would be a good moment. We talked as we prepared for, not
Mhm.
prepared isn't the word, we spoke prior to recording, that my request was, would you be open to doing some type of interactive demonstration of
Right. So this is almost a
something?
challenge. You were like, "Hey, can I ask you to sort of read my mind during the program?" And I am
Right.
all up for it.
Right.
So
And so
just to kind of,
just to
yeah.
underscore, and you can say it better than me, there was no other pre-preparation other than my request. So
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point. Is like you could have asked me to really do anything right now. And as far as you're concerned, there's no way I should be able to know the thought that you're about to let pop into your mind. I didn't ask you to write it down on a piece of paper. You didn't
nope.
text it to me. You didn't secretly
In
whisper it in
fact,
a voice
I
memo.
asked you, do I need a pen or a paper? Do I
Yeah.
need to write anything down? And you were like, no, no, just all I need
Yeah.
to know is you want to do something.
Exactly. So all I'm going to ask you to do right now is to close your eyes for a moment and imagine, well, if you close your eyes for a moment and just imagine that you're on the internet and you're looking through different topics that are interesting to you. And I know there are a great many topics that could be interesting to you, Seth. I'm looking behind you. I see dozens of books. I think you're a man who's very well read, who has a great many interests and areas of exploration. But just right now, commit to a topic that you'd want to learn more about. Imagine you could just go to Wikipedia right now. You're searching for this thing inside of Wikipedia, and out pops the article, and you're just looking through the article on this topic. And I think I'm starting to be there with you. So keep your eyes closed just for a moment. I'm going to write something down here on a small sheet of paper. Seth, I'm going to not show you what this says just yet, but could you, in a nice, clear voice, tell us what it is that you just thought of, like that topic?
Race horses or racehorse.
Race horses, like multiple horses?
Or yeah, racehorse. Yeah, racehorse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you said race horses,
I did. I did.
which is perfect for us. And if that's coming through flipped, just take a second, take a look, and
No,
you'll
it's
understand. It says
that
race
is
horses.
dude, what wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You're I'm in the south of the United States. You're up in the mid-Atlantic. What? hold seriously, because I could have like tennis, uh, music,
Hmm.
reading, fiction, even podcasts. And it's only been in my mind recently that
Hmm.
it came up. That is, dude. Seriously,
Well, thank you.
wow,
So that's
wow.
why I like mentalism. We were talking a little bit about magic and mentalism before. To me, mentalism is more interesting because it has everything to do with people. And what could be more interesting than that? People, the little quirks that each of us carry with us, the things that we're interested in. That old book that sort of set the tone. It was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And when I read that book, the one big key takeaway is people are most interested in themselves. So if you can create a moment of amazement that has everything to do with the person right in front of you, I can't imagine something better than that.
Yeah. Well, I think your mindset, getting to know you, you have this phrase where your mindset determines your magic. Is that right?
Definitely.
And where the impossible becomes possible, and that surely is a demonstration of it. Um, that I feel woken up a little bit. Not that I was like
Asleep.
I'm fully engaged, but no, no. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, there's an extra spark. Maybe
Yes.
that's a better way to say it. Woken up,
Wow.
like an infusion, if you
Yeah.
will, and like a
That's a
little.
really good point. That's something that sometimes I think I forget, but when you experience a moment of like real amazement, you're right, you do kind of wake up. And I think I'm sort of self-aggrandizing right now, but what a gift to be able to give someone. Because when you're a kid, everything is amazing all the time. Everything is new information nonstop. You're learning, you're experimenting, things are brand new. You're seeing what happens if you mix ideas and put things together. And what about this next to that? When you're adult, things slow down. You stop learning as much. Things aren't as new or as exciting. You've been used to the way that the world works for decades. And when you can give someone a moment that sort of brings them back to that wonder of childhood and just gets them to re-look at something in a new way, a new angle, new perspective, question what they're watching, it's a very unusual experience for most people.
It is. And, just to our audience, this is something I would love to hear your comments, particularly whether it's in your business or your events. Where is it that you've had a moment where you've had some life breathed into you, or that spark has been, the flame has been turned up a little bit more? Because, Chris, you have been to so many events as a keynoter and even an attendee, observing, presenting, being an attendee. Event fatigue is real, right?
Mm, yeah.
And audiences, they scroll, they zone out, they're swiping, they're checking email, they're they're going to
Yeah.
the bathroom, they're filling up their water bottle. That seems like such a great break, or an intervention, if you will. How have you seen that play out in your keynotes?
Well, what you're saying is often what my clients say to me as well. So people often come through the door of my website, my business, and they say, "We're looking for something different. Like we've loved all the keynote speakers that we've had, but they're starting to just sort of, I mean this in the nicest way possible, and I'm just paraphrasing, blend together.
Yeah.
Like one event to the next. Like what's really going to stand out in this program that's going to get people locked into the moment to feel that sense of presentness and connectedness and." That tends to be why people choose to work with me.
I'm just want to take a little like official time out here for a second.
Mhm.
I'm still over indexing on how the hell you came up with racehorses. Like, did I have a tell? Did I whinny without was I sleeping when you said close your eyes? Is it like what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know that was a few minutes ago, but holy cow.
Yeah, you did whinny very subtly. You went, "Arr!" And if you're a mentalist, you'll pick up on those little cues and you can kind
Yeah.
of, peek into someone's mind just based on those subtle. Yeah. And if you listen back to the recording in slow motion, you'll hear it, the little,
And I could hear the horseshoes going
yeah.
through.
And I wasn't gonna say anything, but before the podcast started, I saw someone like come into your room with a plate and there was just hay on the plate. Like that's what they brought you for lunch or a
That's
snack or
right.
something. So
That's right.
yeah, I just pieced together those subtle clues.
Yeah. Well, this is it. This might sound like cliche or right out of the brochure, but it's like the magic, the mentalism, it ends, but the mindset sticks.
Hmm.
And what
Hmm.
I'm stuck with is that again, I'll use the word spark, or the breathing of life into where I just have this refreshed energy, and just kind of a new context, a new lens of which to view things. Tell me when we're going to turn the corner here a little bit.
Cool. Let's do it.
Um, and we've had a little bit of a theme in the last few episodes, where a lot of our guests have been moving, and
Is
we
that right?
talk about boxes and packing and tape and organized. One guest alluded to she's so organized and so specific about what's going in what room that she wanted to barcode everything. And her husband was like, I'm dying on that hill. We're organized. You have your spreadsheets and your clipboard and your coding and everything, but we're not going to barcode level. And I joke, but I would love to be able to take the skill that you were able to extract racehorses out of my mind and apply that to moving. Are you able to do that?
I don't have a good way to sort of use my mental powers to help us move, if that's what you're asking. I will say this: our move, I think, relatively is kind of easy because this might develop over time, but over the years, we're going to get more and more stuff. I've worked really hard to kind of be a minimalist. And I know magicians who've got rooms full of props and tricks and stuff. I don't. I have a very small box. And I try to live my life as a minimalist as much as possible because I think in a very real way, the things that you have around you, call it clutter, call it stuff, whatever, all those things in your life, I think they draw a little bit of attention. And I remember hearing a long time ago somewhere that one of the patterns between billionaires is that they tend to work in very bare rooms. It tends to be sheet of paper,
Mm.
pencil, their thoughts, and everything else just kind of gets wiped away. They don't have clutter on their desk. I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions, but whoever I was listening to was talking about this. They don't have clutter on their desk. They don't have things on the wall. They don't have little things here and there, knickknacks that are constantly kind of drawing at their attention. I think the more space you can make in your life in a physical sense, the more space you can make for your thoughts in a sort of metaphysical sense. So we've tried to live our lives that way, and I'm sure we'll get more stuff over time. But for now, that's a priority for me. It's just leaving enough room to have clear thoughts.
Well, quite literally, you, with what you do, you
Mhm.
need clear thoughts. You can't have the clutter. So I think the literal and the metaphor of it all is valuable. And in today's day and age, there's no shortage of clutter or opportunities to
Oh,
clutter.
yeah.
There's no scarcity of, there's an abundance of clutterism, if you will. And we should do
Yeah.
a separate podcast on how to unclutter, including the mind.
I think
Um,
it's important. And when you say clutter, like the thing that pops into my mind is social media and how it's no longer social, but it's interest based and everyone's kind of hooked on this like scrolling system. But at the same time, I try not to judge, what people do too much. I think everyone's got their own rhythm, the things that they prioritize in their life. And at the end of the day, if you've put in a hard day's work and you choose to unwind by watching something that is mind numbingly
Mind
dull,
numbing.
fine. Like, fair enough. Like, maybe that's perfect for some people. Like, I'm certainly not better than that.
Well, I'll take it a step further. Judge not, truly, and it's hard because we're human, and we do. I think what we all can be responsible for, and I talk about this in our family with my children, and my wife and I talk to each other about it. I call it zombie palooza. Sometimes, and I've mentioned this on the podcast, I need a mind numbing 10 minutes. I'll be watching mixed doubles badminton, Vietnam
Oh, oh,
against Malaysia. And I don't
yeah.
even know who's playing, what the score is, if it's the Olympics, the South Pacific Asian Games, it doesn't matter. I'm just completely zoned out. And it's actually nutritive. I think what happens sometimes, Christoph, is that it becomes too much, and we lose the story, we lose the plot a little bit.
Well, first of all, when you said sometimes you just need a mind-numbing 10 minutes, I thought that's why you invited me. But now that I understand where you're going,
Well,
I
we're going to
agree.
do about 30 so that I have a couple of
Okay,
episodes
good.
to numb my mind,
Yeah,
But
next
yeah,
time you need to fall
you
asleep, you can
you
chunk this
caught
episode
me.
up.
You caught me. You found me out.
Um, where were we? You were saying, yeah, sometimes you just need that break, and sometimes it's too much. Agreed. I think everyone's got their own rhythm. I try not to judge it. Sometimes people unwind at the end of the day. I know some people who sprint through 5 days of work, 6 days of work, and then they need 3 days where they're sort of just they just sort of take a nap on the couch with their phone in their hand, and that's fine. I think everyone's got. It's not up to me to decide what's right for you.
Well, the fascinating thing here is that there's no ChatGPT, there's no AI, there's no virtual reality, there's no augmented reality. It's just you and people connecting and engaging them with something fascinating. And what we're seeing with AI is we're in early days. I am no AI expert whatsoever. I am a participant and I am a passenger on the train like so many others.
Yeah.
But we can outsource our choices and our decisions. Ultimately, tell we if AI is the cab, we still have to tell the taxi where to go, when to go, and how to get there, as opposed to it also deciding for us where we're going to go, when we're going to go, and how we're going to get there. And how that I see that connecting to your work is that you read my mind, racehorses. And I am telling you, I'm still kind of blown away. Not still, I'm blown away by it. Uh, Even moments later, um, that is pure neurons, pure synapse, pure gray matter, pure, uh, use of the mind. And you activated my mind. And we need to do that because if not, it atrophies
Hmm.
and it self prunes and we will reduce our capacity because it is a muscle. So here I am making the case to bring Christoph to one of your events by he's a
Yeah, man.
mental gym. Flex that amygdala, flex that cerebral cortex, and everything else that comes along with it. So I don't know.
I,
How do you
I've
feel
just
about that?
been I've just been enjoying this whole thing. I'm listening to you to describe me better than I can describe me, thinking this is brilliant. I got to go listen back to this and start putting this on my website. This is
You're like,
exactly,
I gotta download this audio into ChatGPT so
yeah.
it can synthesize it for me and then
There you
make a
go.
landing page on my website.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm trying to pay attention to the time because I know we're wrapping up here. I'd love to point us in a direction that you started out this episode with. I think that is important to me, if you don't mind. You
please.
mentioned you, that sort of stage fright that I used to experience, and very frankly, that I still experience. But I think the one sort of theme, like the thought that I've kind of tried to bring back and refresh and sort of drill into myself whenever I feel that is do it anyway. Because as scared as I am sometimes to hit the stage, or if I'm doing a big television production or whatever, the other week I was live in Dallas on the Will Kane show for millions of people. I was so nervous, man. But I think we should all be more afraid of the alternative, which is doing nothing. Like there are risks to taking action, to being bold, to trying to build something or do something meaningful. But I think the risks of not doing it are much more severe. I mean, the number one regret that I'm trying to live my life in a way that avoids this thought when I get to the end of my life, thinking I didn't do enough. I didn't live my life to the fullest. Like that is sort of what's driving me. And so when I come face to face with one of those moments where it's like, I'm afraid to do this, do it anyway, because the
Yeah.
alternative is worse.
Well, one of our guests on a recent podcast, Dan Pink, wrote a book on regret, and many of our
Hmm.
subscribers and listeners know that what he found was that at the end of people's lives, they don't regret things they didn't do; they regret
Yes.
the actions they didn't take. You
Yes.
know, and
And the pain
thank you
of
for
that
sharing
failure.
that. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people can relate to the stage fright, or whether it's public speaking or saying something difficult, or having being in discomfort.
I think, for me, it may be an unusual case. Like most people don't think about stepping on stage for a living, but I think everyone can recognize something in their lives that is intimidating to approach. Maybe it's that business that you've been putting off for 20 years. Maybe it's that book that you have inside of you, or maybe it's that relationship that just needs you to take 20 seconds of courage to go ask someone if they might be interested in you. Like I think we all have those moments, and it might have nothing to do with performing magic for most people, but I think that is absolutely something that everybody can recognize within themselves, and it feels the same. Even if it's different things, the feelings are the same. And maybe that's the theme of mentalism, is that, at the end of the day, people do think similarly and they do feel similarly. We're all living this human experience together. And when you're feeling lonely or you're feeling afraid or you're feeling shameful or whatever, in those moments, it can feel so isolating. It can feel like something is only happening to you, but it's just not true. We're all working through this human experience together. And I found that the way people tend to feel is more or less similar. The things are different, but the feelings tend to be the same.
And especially if you're on racehorses.
Especially if you're on racehorses. Boy, oh boy. I'm glad we could circle back to that one last time.
Boy, oh boy. No, but in all seriousness, thank you for sharing that, because it really does connect the dots, and it makes, what you do, even understanding what you do, even more powerful. We are at the end of the road here, Christoph. I just, thank you for your time and being here and sharing about your grandmother in France. And it wasn't a clown camp, it was a circus camp. And
it's fun to sort of be disproportionately offended. How dare you? How dare you? Yeah.
And you're like, allons-y. That doesn't even make sense. So I just want to appreciate, the time that you took, and the thoughtfulness of interacting and doing a live little mind reading there with us. It's so cool. And to our listeners, our subscribers, and our viewers, thanks for coming back. Please share us, like us, love us. I always ask sometimes, Christoph, love, like, a thumbs up or a heart. I mean, what's the distance between that, really? Love us. What the heck? Give us some love. And we appreciate you being with us, and we'll see you next time.